So in today's tutorial, we're going to make a pie chart like this one. Now, this pie chart is driven by real data from a web API. In this case, it's from dummyjson.com. And it takes a little bit of time to set up, but the great thing about it is that it's completely dynamic and automatically generated. So if I come over here, and right now I'm looking at blood group, which is 12, but I want to see, for instance, eye color, which is 15. I can come over here, set this index to 15, and have it be completely regenerated. So this example is found in the tutorials under lists and data. It's called live data pie chart. What we're going to do is we're going to make one from scratch. This thing has quite a few moving parts. It involves a lot the generator can do. So let's see how that works. So for this tutorial, we're going to use a different data set just to switch things up. I'm going to go to this one from Microsoft Edge, the 64 KB one. So I can actually just go and take this URL, come over into generator, create a fetch node, put the URL in here. And now let's create a text node and see what the fetch node gives us. All right, so that's JSON. So now we need to parse this. Well, we don't actually need to look at the JSON directly. We can just parse this by coming over and saying parse JSON. We have 197 values. Let's take one, select from list and look at what the value is. So we add a list. All right, what's going on here? This has a name, a language, an ID, a bio, and a version. So I think we can do a pie chart based on the language because that's going to be a decent grouping. All right, so language is column number 1. So what we need to do now is we need to say column from, wait a minute, so that's not what we need. What we need to do is we need to select a column directly from the table. Now let's say list so we can see what the rows are. We're gonna have, you know what? This is gonna be easier if we use a different node. This one is called get list value names. So we first use this node and then we say list. And so now we have just the value names and their indices. So in this case, we want language, which is index number 1. So we want column number 1. And what I want to do with this column is I want to get all the unique values. So I'm going to get the grouping for the pie chart. So I come over here to list functions. I say unique. And what that gives me is a list of the unique values and a list of their counts, and also a list of their indices, but we don't need that right now. So I'm going to take two lists. I'm going to plug this one in here, and I'm going to plug this one in here so we can see them side by side. All right, so we have 10 languages. This is going to be a nice looking pie chart. What we need to do now is make some slices, some segments. For that, we're going to use an ellipse. I'm going to set it to center, which means that the coordinates, the x and y, are over here, and then this becomes the radius, not the width. This is the way it's made in Figma by default, and this is the way that you can also set it in Generator, and it's easier for a lot of things. So now that I have the ellipse, I need to make some sweeps. And I'm also going to make it a little bit more like a donut, like this, because that, I think, looks a little better. So now that I know that it's 1, I can get rid of this. I don't really need it. This makes the graph a little cleaner so far. All right, so we have a starting segment. Let's actually give this segment a color. We're going to make it white, at least for now. So what I want to do now is I want to get the sizes of all these sections, and that's going to be, to start with, in percentages. So I need to get, for each of these 10 counts, so let's say select from list, except not from here, but from here. So for each of these 10 counts, I need to take the count and divide it by the sum of all the counts. Now the sum we get by taking a multi-math node and just plugging this in here and setting this to plus. That gives us the sum. This is a little close now. Give your node space. it makes it much easier to organize things down the line. So this needs to be divided by the sum. So this will be divided by the sum, like so. That will give us a 0 to 1 normalized sweep percentage. Now, on the ellipse, the sweep is in percent, but actually what we want to do is, because we're going to do this by angle, we're going to make it an angle sweep. So what you can do here is right click and say absolute, and that turns it into an angle. This is something that's not available by default in Figma, but for the stuff that you do in Generator, this is really useful. Now that I have this, I need to multiply it, I'm going to say math, by 360. So multiplied by 360. And so now we can start working with these angles. Now this is the size of the first section. So what we can already do is we can say, we can connect this to the sweep. And then we can run through the sections to see how big they're going to be. Yeah. By the way, the index in select can be negative as well. This is like the @ function for JavaScript arrays, where -1 means the last one and -2 means the one before last, and so on. So now that I've run through the sections to see that they're correct, I need to start moving them. Actually, you know what? This is great, but for now I need to randomize this for every section just so we can see what we're working with. So what I'm gonna do is add 3 random nodes, like so. I'll randomize them by pressing Shift R, and then I can plug each one into here. And so now when we run through all the sections, each one is going to be of a different color. For each section, we have the size of the section. So how do we get this value available for the next section and add it every time? For that, there is the accumulate node. So what that does is every time you pass a value into it, adds it to a store, and that store grows on every iteration. So you can position objects next to each other that have completely different sizes, because each object size will get added exactly, and so you'll always start from the correct next position. So what we do here is we take the sweep of the section, we plug it in here, and then we run this into the start of the sweep. The only thing is that we need to accumulate it afterwards, so that first we get the value and then we add it to the store. So again, to reference JavaScript, this is like the ++ variable versus variable ++ when you use that operation. Like first something happens, then you change the variable, or first you change the variable and then something happens. Same thing here. First you use the value straight and then you add it to the store, or first you add it to the store and then you use it. So right now, what that means is that the first value out of here is going to be 0, which is exactly what we need. So maybe this node actually needs a starting value parameter. I'll have to think about that. All right, so this starts in the right place. When we run through it, they're all going to start in the same place because I'm not repeating anything. So what I need to do is start repeating. So first I need an indexing sequence for the selection. So that's going to be 0 and add 1 every time. Plug this into the index. And then I need to take my ellipse, my segment. Actually, I'm actually going to call it segment. And repeat it some number of times. There you go. We have the segments. They're repeated apparently correctly, but the count needs to be set automatically. So I can set it manually. Yeah. 10, that's right. But we need to set this automatically, and the way we do that is we take this table, the list of counts, and we count it. So we basically just count the number of elements in this table. And here we have the 10, and now we can run this into the repeat count, and automatically we have the right number of sections for the pie chart. What I also like to do, because this will get complicated, is automatically just create a combine node and then run the first set through the combine node into the loop because we will have to add more stuff into this combine node later. But for now, I'm going to bring this down, define this bell shape, which is how loops tend to look in Generator. And so this is the basic pie chart. If we don't like these colors, we can just change them. But it doesn't really matter because we're going to make it white in the end anyway. This is just to see the sections. The next thing I would like to do is add the data. So not just the sections, but also the text. Let's see what is in there. These are the languages, so probably I'm going to put them inside the sections. All right, so we have these. So I need a select from list. I'm going to bring it over here. I can use the same exact index because they're just different columns of the same table. And now I need to place the text in the middle of the section. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to create a point, I'll rotate the point, I'll place it in the right position, and then I'll place the text on that point. And here's how that works. We take a vector point, which is at 0, 0 by default. We move it without moving the space. So I'm going to move it to somewhere like this, the middle. I mean, we can calculate it exactly, but for now, let's just do this. And then I need to rotate it. So now when I rotate it, it's going to go around the pie chart and it's going to be somewhere in the middle of the section like I need it to. But I need to rotate it according to, let me highlight this accumulate node. I need to rotate this according to the accumulated value or the start value. So if I just plug this into here directly, and then for instance, I say repeat. You know what? I don't even need to repeat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have the section and the node in a group. So there's the group, and then I can plug this point into the group. And I can see that everything became messed up. Why did everything become messed up? So this is one of those things that you need to fix with caching. The reason is that you have an accumulate node which then has two outputs, and every time something asks for the output, and here you have basically two separate branches, it gets a new value. So what you need to do is you need to take this value that comes out of here and kind of freeze it temporarily. So here we have two nodes, cache and freeze. Freeze takes whatever comes in and just completely makes it static. Cache is a little bit more flexible and it works inside of loops. So the way you do that is you add it over here, and then you can plug it into the repeat loop, like so. And what that does is every time a value comes out of here, it holds it until this loop tells it to refresh again, which is extremely useful because now we can take this value and use it for several different things and have it stay for the duration of that iteration of the loop. So now this is not correct yet, and it looks to me like these points are going backwards. So over here I'm going to bring a math node, say minus, and just run this through here for the angle. And so that's correct now. Now we have the points in the right places. The only thing is we need to add something like a half an angle. So I'm going to say add, so another math. I'll take a multi-math, that's fine. Have this be a plus. And then I need to take this angle and take half of it. So another math node. Run it through here. Say 2, divide, and then plug that into here. Seems like, so let me try another accumulate, but with a before setting. So I'll take this, I'll take another cache, I will run this cache into the loop. And I will take this value from here now. There we go. So that's what I needed to do. 2 accumulates with different settings, each one cached, gives me the correct points. So that's not too bad for a pie chart, which is completely customizable. So now let's bring in these names. Instead of the rotate, what I need to do is a text shape. The text shape is going to be going into the group. So let me get some more space. The text shape is going to be here, but the text shape needs to be placed. So I'm going to say place. I'm going to plug this point into the point parameter of place. And now I'm going to come over here, activate just this. Why is there no text? Oh, right, because I didn't plug in any text. So now I take the text from here and plug it into the text shape. There's all the text. We're going to clean things up a little bit. So let's say, wait a minute. I'm going to do this. This is going to go under here. The text is going to be here. And this is all the placement stuff. There we go. That makes a bit more sense. Now, let's see about this text. First of all, it needs a color. So let's take the default color and look at that. That's not correct. We need to come over here and disable transform. That's better. Now we need to align it to center. So we change the size to, let's say, 8. Maybe 6. All right, so that's a pretty decent pie chart. The only thing is maybe I would want to work with long names like this, which is not too hard. So I can come in here and say replace. And then I come in over here and say replace space with a new line. There you go, so now it fits better. So automatic pie chart with generator directly in Figma. Now, let's make those cool lines. Or actually, let's do something else first. Right now, all the colors are all right with white text, but actually this may not be the ideal situation, so you might have some different colors. Something like this, all right? And so the white text is not visible. What we do for that is we might want to move all of this forward a little bit so that it makes sense visually in the graph. You'll see why in a second. And I mean, the graph is not too bad so far as complexity. So now we need 2 colors. We need, let's say, white, and we need black. I'm going to use an if-else node. We can use a select node. It doesn't really matter in this case. Their values are inverted. And so now if the color of the section is too bright, or if the color of the section is brighter than a certain value, then we use black, otherwise we use white. And the way we do that is we take, this is the color of the section, so we need another color node. Doesn't need to be in the middle. And we put it into HCL OK mode to get the lightness. So now we need to check this lightness against some value and then use that to make the decision on the color of the text. So we will take this color and we will compare it to, or the lightness, we'll compare the lightness. We'll say if the lightness is less than or equal to 60, then we will use white. Otherwise, we'll use black. And then this color goes in here. There you go. So maybe 60 is not the right value. Let's do 70. 75. Yes. All right. So again, a dynamic pie chart driven by real data from the web, made completely in Figma with a little help from generator. So now let's get those lines. What we can do is we can get rid of this random color. We can run the white directly into the style of the text. We can delete all of this logic stuff. In fact, I'm just going to use the same white for both the pie chart sections and the text. Now the text needs to go outside, which means that this needs to be like 150. A little too far. 121. That looks all right. First, let's get these sections separated from each other. The way I'm going to do that is, so I have a start and a sweep. I need to push the start in a little bit and bring the sweep back by twice as much. So now I need to get some math nodes. One for the start, one for the sweep. A ×2 for the other side. And some value. So I'm going to call this section gap. The section gap goes into, so first of all, I take the start angle, I add the section gap. I take the sweep angle and I remove twice the section gap because it needs to be symmetric. Over here. And I remove, I say minus. All right. And this I can put into here instead. And then run this into the sweep. So that is correct, but 10 is way too big. I need to set it to 1. 1 is still really big. I'll set it to 0.1. Maybe 0.2. All right, that looks all right. I wish, of course, it's getting larger as the radius increases, but that can be done by masking out lines or something like that as a last step. No, we're not going to do it in this example. So now we need to make them into sections. The way I did it in the example file is that the number of sections is the number in the data set. So we're going to do the same thing here. Now, another thing we need to do is I added to inner the same thing as I did to sweep, so you can make it absolute. And now it's not in percent, but in pixels, which is going to be important because we're going to have repeating sections irrespective of the size of the section. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to scale the section to get the outer radius, and then we're going to adjust the inner radius to match that according to the number of people. First of all, we're going to scale this to, no, you know what? Let's do relative for now, and let's make it 99. This way we can work on just the sections for now. So now we have these sections. Let's make this 1 so that I can see them a little better. There we go. Now I need to repeat each one of these arcs and scale it down. The way I'm going to do that is I have, let's say 100 is going to be the outer and 50 is going to be the inner. I will have to take this segment and I'm going to have to scale it. And I'm going to disable scale space. And I will, let me get the same number plugged into width and height so I can scale it proportionally. By the way, holding Control to bring this value back to here, which makes things easier. And then if I scale it down, they all scale correctly. All right. So now I need to get a range because I know the start and the end. Let me connect this to make it easier. So the outer becomes the start and the inner becomes the end. So I'll go from the outside to the inside. And then I can drag this over here. And we're going to make another little loop. So the loop is going to be range going into width and height. The scale repeating. It needs to get back into the group. So now obviously this is taking more time. And now I'm going to loop this like so to make sure that it's repeating. There we go, for each section. Let's mark this with a panel so that we know where each loop is. So this is the small loop. And we're going to make it orange. Let's make it like blue. There we go. That's the small loop. And there's the big, large loop. So it's pretty clear so far. And actually, you know what? I'm going to make it yellow because the controls are yellow. There we go. So the controls are yellow. I'm going to keep them out there to keep things clean. This is the little loop that repeats the sections. And now I need to run something into this count. And what I run into this count is this. It's this selected number from the table of counts. I'll just plug this in here. All right, that looks more correct. So now we have, this is actually not looking too bad. Maybe we don't need to mess with the sizes for this tutorial. If you want to see how to make the thickness adjust itself, you can look in the example. But yeah, so this is a dynamic pie chart in Figma driven by real data from a web API with some help from Generator. Now, some of these nodes are available only to subscribers, and I ask people to subscribe because I'm basically just one person working on this, and the more subscribers I get, the more I can focus and concentrate on making a really good product. Thanks for watching.